Taking care of myself makes me a better mom because I parent from abundance, not from lack. What I encourage every one of you ladies is whatever you feel the Lord is speaking to you for today, that like word that you need right now, that's all I want you to walk away with. So when I was praying for this course, the biggest thing that came up today was identity. There's a scripture in Proverbs 29:18. It says, where there is no vision, people perish. And I believe a lot of that like struggle in motherhood is because it really is like you lose your sense of normalcy, you lose your routines, you kind of try to figure out like, how do you even function? And then you add relationship issues and special needs and exhaustion, and you're just almost like just hanging on by a thread trying to figure out, who am I? What am I doing? Who is God? Like, you know, all these questions that we all wrestle with. It's all very common for all of us. I did a little bit of research about the most common postpartum struggles that mamas face. So I'm gonna just list a couple: body issues, body changes, sleep deprivation, feeling like a loss of identity, depression, anxiety, fatigue that's ongoing, hormonally issues, feeling guilty, feeling lonely, and then pressure, career, work-life, balancing, lack of support, all sorts of things. So I'm sure if I was to ask every one of you if that's what your struggles are, you would probably all say like, yes, like all of that, yes. And so when I was praying about identity, that verse came up from Proverbs 29:18. It says, where there's no vision, people perish. So identity is paired with vision. So with postpartum, a lot of us moms, like one of the biggest traps that we'll fall into is just not knowing who we are anymore. What is your calling? What is your purpose? And kind of just feeling lost in like the mundane day in, day out of struggles of motherhood. But if you don't know where you're going or who you're becoming, you can get lost feeling despaired, depression, all sorts of things. And the example that came to mind this morning when I was going through this topic of identity is like, the way that you guys are studying your children, just like you're discovering like their weaknesses and strengths, as a mom, it's important that you are discovering your own weaknesses and strengths. And it's really like a journey of becoming. And so I will touch through postpartum like as we're going, but I want to take it further and do more like motherhood, like becoming that best version of you, like that woman of God that you were created to be, more than just like what you can perform or do or all like, you know, the things that you're like doing. I want you guys to really like the process of becoming. A lot of us like can deconstruct is because it is a process. But without like, if we don't have Jesus as our center, it really does become like a dead end. No matter how many times you're like trying to get away or do your self-care or step aside, it just feels like you're still running on empty and you're kind of like coming out like just lost. Adding on the marriage issues, adding on special needs, adding on exhaustion. It is so easy to like just try to do it by our own strength and forget that like we really are called to lean on our beloved one, like to lean on Jesus, because that's where our grace is perfected, you know, where we become strong. Every one of us, postpartum or not, as mothers, we can come to a place where our just noise, like our souls get cluttered with noise. And I'm sure like many of you guys experience that, especially when like those with larger families, like 5 kids. I'm one of 6 kids, so I know like the hustle and bustle of home life. It's like one person goes away and it feels like the whole house is silent. Like there's always noise. But one thing is like more than just like physical noise. As moms, you have like emotional and mental clutter. What's for dinner? What's my next doctor appointment? You know, how am I gonna work out? I need to eat healthy, like all that noise. And then you add on like your faith, like I'm not spending time with God. I feel so bad. Does God even love me? Does God care about me? Am I even worthy? What am I doing? And then you add on marriage. Like you just become like one big cluttered, noisy mess in our minds. But I really like, as I'm hearing you girls' stories, I really want you girls to like own your story. Every single thing that is in your life and on your plate like is a part of your story that God can use and will use if you allow that. And I think that sometimes it's easy, especially like in a social media world, which, you know, like if any of you girls are on social media, like the comparison trap, the scrolling, like everybody else has it together, or why don't they have this, or why aren't they struggling this way? And even if you're not thinking those things, like our brains were not made to carry that kind of weight. Like going online and then just seeing all these like 2-second reels, 2-second things, 1-second things, like this constant bombardment, like it really clutters us a lot. We all have certain pains that we're called to carry, certain burdens that we're called to carry, and not adding on other people's weights and burdens and in our own comparisons of them, like not even having a full story, you know. And I'm sure all of you know this. I'm sure like that's like a common thread among mothers classes is social media and all of that. God has put you guys exactly where you're called to be. And like your children have the exact mother that they need in you. And so if you ever have those thoughts of like, man, I don't, you know, I have so much on my plate. How am I going to do this? How am I going to teach him to walk? Or he's not talking, or she's not doing this enough, or whatever. Like, you have everything in you put by God to be able to carry that out and to be able to walk that out for your children to be empowered in what God has called them to. And so I want to encourage you, like another word that I'm just getting is like generational, like legacies. God cares about your children, and he cares about their children and their children and their children. So it doesn't stop with you. And so as mothers, like as postpartum mothers, like I'm, you know, my baby's 14 months. So I'm like right along there with a lot of you girls. My biggest thing is like the exhaustion. And it just never ends. You know, like there's always like something adding on and adding on and adding on. And what I started doing is I started asking the Lord every morning, like, God, what is that one word that you want to speak to me today? What is that one scripture that you want to speak to me today so that I can have the substance I need to carry out my task today, you know? Because many of us, and I'm sure many of you feel this way of like, we think like years ahead, you know, we think months ahead, like, you know, your baby's not walking by 2. And so you're thinking at 18 years old, is he never gonna like walk? Like you think ahead, maybe not you, but I know for me, I do. Like my baby's 14 months, almost 15, not walking. And I have people asking like, you need to help him. I'm like, no, he's doing great. Like he is doing great. He's exactly where he needs to be. But I think that we can like put on weights on ourselves that we were never made to carry. And so going back to identity being paired with vision, just to encourage every one of you ladies, postpartum is a season that does end, and it's all just seasonal. So like the hard that you're in doesn't mean that it's bad, it just means that it's hard, but there is an end to it. It will end, and if not on this side of the earth, like there will be an eternity ahead of us where we're gonna like, there will be no more tears, no more pain, like if we believe what the Bible says, you know.
But sometimes it's hard because it's like, dang, you don't want them to really see you like that.
Yeah.
You know, in certain situations, you know, so how did you manage, but also, you know, open up in a way to where you were able to fix it?
Yeah. That's a really good question. You know, obviously, like you said, there's practical things. I think the very first practical thing is like, you just have to be honest with yourself and how you really are. I'm a big journaler, so I will actually just journal every day, if, you know, as much as I'm able to. And I'll journal like, I'm so angry, I'm so depressed, I hate this, you know, all the things. They're just unfiltered, very raw. Like if anybody finds my journal, like it's not gonna be good, you know. But it's ultimately like, we need to have a space for that, right? Otherwise, like you said, we blow up on people, we take it out on people, we hurt people, and then we're like recovering, and that's a lot harder. So I would say first, get really honest with yourself, where you're at. If you need, like you said, you need that time to just blow up and cry alone. If that's what you need, like however you can get it off of your heart, I would say that's the kind of the first. 2, we're not called to do this by ourselves. So like if you, like say you're a Christian, but you're not spending time with Jesus, you're not like reading his word or just giving time with him, then you're not able to receive the grace he has for you because you're not actually spending time with him. It's like if you're married, but you never talk to each other or go on dates, like you can't say you have a passionate, hot, romantic relationship when you don't have any time together because you don't know each other, you know what I mean? And you don't have time together. And sometimes those times, like with the husband, sometimes those times together are very dull and very empty. And so sometimes I think realistically as Christians, when we spend time with Jesus, it's not always like how they say on Instagram. Like sometimes it's dry, it's empty, it's dull, it's broken, it's messy. So I would say the first thing is getting honest with yourself, like journaling or by yourself, crying, just getting it out of your heart. 2, I would say evaluate where you are with Jesus. A lot of my postpartum course is going to be around Christian motherhood. And if you're not a believer, you can still glean a lot of things from just whatever will encourage you. But I do want to just kind of preface it with that. So before I start, I'm going to kind of just give you guys an overlap of what we're going to be covering in the next 5 weeks. I am looking over here to the left because I have my computer I'm actually putting together a little ebook for you girls. But the course will be called Mothering the Mom. So it's just like a support group for you mothers to be mothered. And so that's really my heart, is that every one of you will feel like you're being mothered and being cared for and nurtured in this time. I'm sure many of you have already heard this, like motherhood is ministry. You know, motherhood is sacrifice. And you as women, as moms, like you are life givers over your home. And like you have like because we carry so much heart, right? Like we're just like the heart of the home as moms. Like we're feelers. We can see what's coming before it comes many times. You know, we empathize with our children, all these things. Start speaking life if you're not already doing that. Like speak life over your children. If they're going through something, like what is it that you want to see? And like speak that over them instead of like, you can't do this, but you are strong. You are brave. You are able to manage your emotions. You can walk, you can run. You are, you know, stronger than you think. But like learning to be like, we're life bearers. We carry life in our wombs, right? Women, we carry life. As we become mothers, postpartum and later, you are still carrying life. Mothers still carry like their child's DNA up until like 18 years old, when the child is 18 years old or something. So like their cells are still like wrapped up in our DNA, which is why, I don't know if you ever feel this, but like you can feel your child crying even if like no one hears them, or like you can almost feel their pain. Like they don't have the words, but you're like, I know, I just, like I'm there. It's like,
that is so true.
Find the fact for you guys.
When my daughter cries, I literally feel it internally, and I'm like, oh Lord. And the same with my son. I agree with that.
Really powerful because it's purposely done by God so that we know how to minister to the hearts of our children. We're not responsible for anybody else. So I'm not responsible for my husband, right? Like I'm not responsible for how he treats the children or how he reacts to the children. And you know, that's something like my husband and I will have to learn how to like, how do we do it together where you can raise them up to be like men of character and I can raise them up to be like the heart of Jesus. Like we both need each other, but I can't manage how my husband does it. I can only manage how I do it. But I have like 150 self-care ideas. And I know that's like an overused, you know, like everything's self-care, but it's not the way that you think, okay? Okay, one practical way of coming back to our identity as mothers, or like just figuring out how to thrive and function as mothers, is filling our hearts, like filling our buckets, because we can't give to others if we don't have it ourselves, right? And there's this little quote, it said, taking care of myself makes me a better mom because I parent from abundance, not from lack. And so I'm gonna share these self-care things. And my homework for you ladies is to just do one a day, but aim for 3 a day, okay? And I'll share them after. And there's something like I'm reading them right now, like something very simple. 1, making your bed. 2, taking a deep breath. 3, memorizing a scripture. 4, saying no. Like they're all free basically, because I know self-care can be like getting your nails done or going to the cabins or, you know, getting pedicures, which is all beautiful and wonderful. But as mothers, especially in your, you know, case when you have a lot of things going on, that's not realistic. But I think sometimes as mothers, we can take on more than more than necessary. And I think that if we're not stopping to refill and refuel ourselves, we can't give what we don't have. And that's where I go back through self-care. What I want to like practically, that's like my practical takeaway today. So before in your head, you're like, you know, I don't want to do this. I don't have time for this. I don't care about self-care. It really is something like if we are not filled, we can't be our best version. Like we can't overflow with the joy and the grace and the substance if we are empty and dry. And I don't know, like as Christian moms, where we believe that lie, like we shouldn't take care of ourselves, because that's really like a lie from the enemy. Like because it comes with guilt. Like it comes with like, I can't take care of me because that's selfish, or my kids need me so I can't step away for a shower, or my, you know, whatever, fill in your blank.
That's something that I'm learning too. I'm going through counseling, and that's one of my goals for counseling is what makes me happy. So I'm working on what makes me happy. So I have to do 1 hour even on the weekends. Majority of the time, I have the free time. Yeah. So I just lost my doors. My kids are banging my door, and I can't answer my door because I have to pour back into myself because I've been drained. And like you said, you can't continue to go on if you're pouring from an empty cup. And then when you're not even, your cup is not even full from like my thing is childhood trauma too.
Yeah.
That kind of lays on top of that too. And it's like, I'm pouring from nothing. How you pour from nothing to your kids? You want the best for your kids, but how do you want the best for somebody else when you don't have it for yourself?
Yeah.
So yeah, my thing is an hour now. So I'd like to do crafts. I'm able to do a little bit more crafting and not listening to my kids.
Yes.
All the doors outside the door, and I don't open that door until the hour is over.
Yes, good for you. And eventually, you know, what you're doing is like what I said earlier, like you mothers are life givers, and you're setting a standard in your home, and you're going to train your children, especially if you have daughters. You're going to train them like, yeah, you're going to train them like this is godly to tend to your heart so that you can give an overflow, you know? Because you can't give from an empty cup. And there's a really cool analogy that like I always go to is like, if I'm eating mashed potatoes, I can't offer you guys like a fruit salad because it's not what's on my plate. So I can only give what I'm feeding and what I have, and then I can nourish you with what I have. And I believe that like mothers, especially postpartum, can feel so guilty. Like it feels so bad I don't know why, it just feels so guilty. Like you feel bad, you feel like your kids are gonna be sad, you feel like your husband's gonna be angry at you.
I feel we feel that way because, you know, society made us feel like we're abnormal. We go through these spells of being depression and not meeting up to the quote unquote standards of life. Yeah. But like this, like the way that society portrays mothers, like depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, burnt out, touched out, those things are like, like whenever I see like, you know, social media posts all those things, my question is always, how are you tending to your soul? How are you tending to your spirit? Because I don't have those things anymore. You know, I used to. And my self-care isn't extravagant. It's not, I don't step outside every day for an hour. You know, I don't get away every single weekend, but I do something where I know that if I'm going to be the best mom that God has called me to, and I'm going to disciple my children, I'm going to raise them up emotionally healthy, then I need to be able to I need to give an uncluttered heart to them, like a very present heart. And I need to be able to have ears to hear, like if God is speaking something to me to speak life over my children, if I can't hear God because I'm so stressed out and overwhelmed, then that's not a godly thing to do. You know, like that's not being a godly mom to just give out, and then you're just snapping and you're irritable and you're angry and then you feel guilty because now you're angry and, you know, it's just a vicious cycle. And so I'm gonna share these. I have like 150 ideas. They're mostly all free. But I'll share them with you guys afterwards. And my homework for you is just one a day. Let me see time. Oh yeah. So one a day, aim for 3 a day. But out of everything that we talked about, is there anything that maybe was confusing or unclear, or maybe you guys want something like for me to elaborate on more? I want to make sure I'm giving enough time for us to chat if we want to.
I kind of want to elaborate. You were saying about how we grew up, and we were always reacting and not to treat our children that way so they won't grow up living in it. And I was like, now wait.
To go back on your, like the judgmentalism, one thing we always tell our son, because our value in our home is we're raising disciples. Like that's something we constantly say, my husband and I, to each other. Like we're not just raising kids, we're not entertaining them. We don't do here's your lap, you know, your toys, your iPads, whatever. Like we feel called that we're raising disciples, and so they need to be set apart, you know. And I'm sure many of you ladies, like as you're praying for your children, like you're praying those things, like only God knows and only God can do whatever God can do, regardless how amazing of a mom you are, or maybe how lacking you are. Like ultimately, like God cares about our children so much. And that's something to encourage every one of us. Like God really does care about your babies more than you do. And it's not something that he just put on your plate and then he's like forgetting to take care of them. So whenever you have the questions and the fears that creep in, really like the powerful thing of our mind is like, instead of focusing on those things, like setting our mind on things above. So when like the fears and the handicap, is he gonna be wheelchaired? You know, this or that, is my relationship gonna fall apart? All this or that, and financially, am I gonna be okay? Like taking that focus off of that and putting it onto what is constant, what is steady, and let me put my attention on that. And so something we tell our son is we always say, you are not responsible for them. You're only responsible for you. So like, you're not responsible for somebody else sinning against you, or somebody, you know, he's 4. So we're not responsible for baby brother stealing your toy, but you are responsible for you fighting. Like, your sin, your response, your lashing out in anger, you are responsible for you.
I'm working with that with my 11-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, I'm sure all of us have grown up in similar maybe ways with like control, you know, like your parents want to like tell you what, and I believe authority is authority. So I do believe parents should say, you know, just to preface it, like, yeah, like you're raising them, that you should have authority. That's okay. But sometimes it's so much control that it's like, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, that when you become an adult, you don't even know how to like function or emotionally manage, because you never had to, you know, like you just reacted or lived in like that reaction mode. And that's something
we're sorry.
No,
that's
go ahead.
We're learning in our household, because we've been in that environment. We have to be more reactive more than anything, and we're trying to tone it down at this point. So giving her different tools to let her know.